Dad ignored me for 12 years, then showed up when he heard about my book deal. The bell above the bookstore door chimed, bright and cheerful, completely wrong for the way my chest tightened. I was standing behind a folding table draped in black cloth, my name printed in neat white letters on a little sign, stacks of my debut novel arranged like I wasn't terrified to touch them. My pen was uncapped in my hand. My agent, Marcy, was 2 feet away whispering, "You're doing great," as if she could see the sweat prickling under my collar. I looked up and saw him in the doorway, half in shadow, half in the soft, warm light of the shop, taller than I remembered, older around the eyes, holding himself like he still expected the room to rearrange around him. He scanned the crowd, then his gaze landed on me. He smiled like we were late for dinner, and I'd saved him a seat. My stomach lurched so hard I had to grip the edge of the table. "Claire," he said like my name was a claim. The people in line kept shuffling forward, unaware. The air smelled like paper and cinnamon tea. My throat went tight, but I heard my own voice come out thin and steady. "What are you doing here?" It was a Thursday night, 12 years after the last time my dad looked me in the face and acted like I mattered, and the only reason he was standing in front of my book signing was because someone had tagged him in a post. That's the sick little twist. Not a letter. Not a call, because he missed me. A post. My publisher's announcement graphic, my headshot, the title, the words "2-book deal," shared by my mom's cousin who still thinks public congratulations count as love. I didn't even realize my dad still had access to that side of the family online, but of course he did. People like him keep a thin thread attached to your life, so they can yank it when it benefits them. When I was 16, my dad stopped responding. Before that, he was inconsistent in the way adults excuse as complicated. He'd show up for birthdays with a gift that didn't fit my interests, then disappear for months. He'd promise weekends that didn't happen. He'd call me kiddo like he was doing me a favor by remembering I existed. My parents divorced when I was 14, and he moved across the state with a woman he'd been friends with. The first year after the divorce, he sent a few texts short, vague things like, "Hope school's good." Then one day I asked him, directly, why he kept bailing, and he didn't like being questioned. That's what my mom said later, carefully, when she was trying not to poison me against him while also trying to protect me from the fallout. "He doesn't like accountability," she said, stirring pasta sauce too hard, jaw tight. "It makes him feel judged." The last real conversation I had with him was on a Tuesday afternoon in the school parking lot. I remember the heat coming off the asphalt, the way my backpack straps dug into my shoulders. He'd picked me up late, like always, and I'd gotten into the passenger seat and said, "If you don't want to be my dad, just say that." My voice shook, but I said it. He stared straight ahead at the steering wheel, then laughed, one short breath like I'd told a joke. "Don't be dramatic," he said.
I'm busse.
"You'll understand when you're older." I remember looking at his hands, clean and steady, and realizing he could keep them that steady while he broke me. After that, I texted him a few times. I called once. No answer. Weeks passed. Then months. And then a year. Eventually, I stopped trying because every attempt made me feel like a kid knocking on a locked door. I built a whole life in the space where he should have been. I went to college on scholarships. I worked in a coffee shop with early morning regulars who felt like a small, predictable family. I wrote at night, hunched at a cheap desk, the lamp buzzing, my fingers cramped from typing. I wrote essays first, little pieces about grief and abandonment and the weird way you can miss someone who treated you like a chore. Then, slowly, I wrote fiction because fiction was the only place I could control the ending. When I got my agent, I didn't tell my dad. When my book went on submission, I didn't tell my dad. When the offer came in, Marcy calling me, breathless, saying, "They want it, Claire, they want both books." I cried on my kitchen floor with my cat rubbing against my leg, and I still didn't tell my dad. Not because I was trying to punish him, because he'd trained me to expect nothing. Then the announcement post went up, and a day later, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was, "Proud of you." I stared at it until my eyes went dry. My hands started shaking, and I had to set my phone down on the counter like it was hot. For a second, a pathetic little part of me thought, maybe he finally feels bad. Maybe he finally realized. The email was 3 sentences. Claire. Heard about your book deal. I always knew you had talent. Call me.
No apology.
No acknowledgement of 12 years. Just an instruction. I didn't reply. 2 days later, my mom texted. Your dad called me. He asked for your number. I told him no. Are you okay? I stared at that message for a long time, thumb hovering, feeling this weird mix of gratitude and nausea. My mom and I have had our own complicated moments. She made mistakes. She stayed too polite for too long. She tried to keep peace with someone who didn't deserve it, but she has never, ever pretended my dad's absence didn't matter. She's the reason I didn't grow up thinking I was unlovable. She always said, this is about him, not you. Even when her eyes looked tired. I told her I was fine. I was lying, but it was the easiest kind of lie. Then came the signing. It was supposed to be a celebration. My first in-person event. The bookstore owner had put out a little tray of cookies and a pitcher of water with lemon slices floating like tiny lifeboats. My mom was there in the second row, hands folded in her lap like she was holding herself together. My best friend Nora was filming short clips for my social media, whispering encouragement every time I looked like I might float away. People lined up with copies of my book, smiling, asking me to sign their names, telling me they related to a character. I was trying to stay in the moment, trying to let myself have this. And then the bell chimed, and my dad walked in. Up close, he looked less invincible than he used to. A little gray at the temples. A crease between his brows like he'd been practicing irritation for years. But he still carried himself like I owed him something. Claire, he said again, stepping closer to the table. People in line turned their heads, curious. My agent immediately straightened beside me, that subtle professional shift where she becomes a wall. I forced my fingers to keep holding the pen. Why are you here? I asked, careful, because I could hear the tremor trying to climb into my voice. He smiled wider, like I was being silly. I came to support my daughter, he said, loud enough for nearby people to hear. My stomach twisted. Support. Like he'd been there quietly the whole time. Marcy leaned in and said politely, Hi, I'm Claire's agent. We're in the middle of an event. My dad barely glanced at her. His eyes stayed on me. I sent you an email, he said, as if that was a trump card. You didn't respond. I saw it, I said. He made a small sound of annoyance. Okay.
Well.
I'm here now. The audacity of that sentence almost made me laugh, but it came out as a breath. My mom's chair scraped softly somewhere behind the crowd. I didn't look back because if I saw her face, I might lose control. My dad put his hand on the table like he was anchoring himself in my space. Listen, he said, lowering his voice just enough to pretend it was private. This is huge, Claire.
I'm proud.
And I think we should talk about how we're going to handle the press stuff. I blinked. The press stuff? He nodded, eyes bright. They'll ask about family. About where you got your inspiration. We should be on the same page. Then, like he was doing me a favor, he added, I can help. I know how these things work. He didn't. He sells insurance. But confidence has always been his main skill. Marcy's posture tightened. There is no press list that requires family coordination, she said evenly. My dad's jaw flickered. I'm her father, he snapped, and for a second I saw the old version of him, the one who hated being challenged. And something in me finally snapped into place, not loud, not dramatic. Just solid. You don't get to show up now and rewrite the story, I said, still quiet. The words felt like lifting something heavy off my chest. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 12 years, I said, and my voice steadied as I went. 12 years where you didn't call, didn't visit, didn't ask how I was. You didn't show up when I graduated. You didn't show up when I moved. You didn't show up when I got my first job. You didn't show up for anything that wasn't public. A couple people in line were definitely listening now. I could feel it. My face burned, but I didn't stop. You found out about my book deal from the internet, I added. And now you want to manage the narrative. He looked genuinely offended, like I'd accused him of a crime. I was busy, he said, like the old excuse still worked. Life happens.
You're an adult now.
Stop holding a grudge. Marcy took a half step forward. Sir, she said firmer, if you're not here to purchase a book and join the line, you need to step away from the signing table. My dad's eyes flashed to her, then back to me. Is this what you've become? He hissed. Cold. I stared at him and felt my hands stop shaking. No, I said. This is what I had to become to survive you. His mouth opened, then closed. The crowd noise around us suddenly seemed too loud. The murmur of conversation, the rustle of pages, the distant sound of the espresso machine. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed level. You can buy a copy, I said, nodding toward the stacks. You can stand in line like everyone else. Or you can leave. He scoffed, but there was uncertainty in it now. He wasn't used to me having an audience and boundaries at the same time. Unbelievable, he muttered louder. Then he leaned in like he needed the last word. Don't forget who gave you that imagination, he said. I felt something almost sad flicker through me because even then, he wanted credit. My imagination kept me company when you didn't, I said, and that was it. I picked up my pen again and turned to the woman at the front of the line, forcing my face back into a polite smile. Hi, I said, voice shaking slightly now that the confrontation was over. Who should I make it out to? My dad stood there for a beat, stunned that the world kept moving without his permission. Then he left. The bell chimed again, cheerful and wrong. After the signing, I went into the back room and sat on a stack of folded chairs because my legs wouldn't hold me. My mom came in and didn't say anything for a second. She just put her hand on my shoulder, warm, steady. You did good, she whispered. I nodded, and my throat closed. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt wrung out, like I'd been carrying a weight for 12 years and finally set it down and didn't know what to do with my hands afterward. Later that night, my dad posted on Facebook. So proud of my daughter Claire and her new book. Always knew she'd do great things. People commented congratulations like he'd earned them. I didn't respond. I didn't correct him publicly. I just blocked him. It's strange, realizing the version of family someone performs is not the same thing as family. I'm still untangling it. But I know this. I don't owe him access to my life just because my work became visible. He opted out when it was private and hard. He doesn't get to opt in now that it's shiny. Thanks for watching. If you've ever had someone disappear until you had something they could brag about, share your story in the comments. I'm reading them and I'd really like to hear you.